Over 7 million Americans are living with it. It is the most prevalent autoimmune disease in the world. It is psoriasis. Our next guest, Fred Finkelstein, is here to talk about his film, I'm Just Like You, Children with Psoriasis. Fred, welcome.
Thank you, David.
Now, talk to us about your own personal journey with psoriasis. When were you diagnosed, and obviously why it's led you to work on this film?
I was diagnosed in 1976. I was 29 years old. I woke up one day with a patch of funny skin on the scalp, on my scalp, on the top of my head, and it was itching, and it was flaking, and I didn't know what it was. So I went to a dermatologist. He told me I had psoriasis. He gave me some shampoo. I went home and used the shampoo, and it helped a little bit. And basically that was fine for the next 2 years. And then around 2 years later, I woke up with a pain on the fourth toe of my right foot, and went to a bunch of doctors. Nobody knew what it was. Eventually, they made the connection between the flakes on my scalp, the patch of skin on my scalp, and the painful joint, and I was diagnosed with psoriasis and what's called psoriatic arthritis. There's a connection between the skin and the joints. About a third of people with psoriasis develop the arthritic component, and the disease itself can be mild, moderate, or severe, and in my case, as you can see with my hands, it's been life-altering.
Right. Now, at what point did this become more than just something you lived with? I mean, you had a radio show, you've been here in San Francisco for many years, have many people have known your work through KALX radio, but when did this become, in a sense, your life's work?
Well, you know, in a very real sense, it became my life's work when things started to get bad, because it went from mild to severe rather quickly. Psoriasis doesn't follow a straight line. It goes up, it goes down. Any chronic illness varies. There are times when it'll be stable for long periods of time, and other times when it will just flare up for no apparent reason. Possibly stress. We know that one of the triggers is stress. One
of the triggers of an outbreak as well.
Of an outbreak, exactly. A trigger might be a strep infection, people just getting sick. Something can happen to trigger it, and then it can just spread all over your body, and it can be a nightmare. It can be a real nightmare, because after all, our skin is our presentation before the world. You know, and people see us, and they see us with red, itchy skin, and especially today in the age of AIDS and antimicrobial soaps and concern about hygiene and germ spreading and you know, bird flu virus. They don't know what you have.
Right. Now, do you think in a sense that psoriasis, with films like this and the work of, tell me the name of your foundation again.
The Sparklestone Foundation.
The Sparklestone Foundation. In a sense, this disease is coming out of the closet, although it's been with us for...
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, the disease itself is biblical. There are references to psoriasis in the Bible. There's a chapter in the Torah called Tazria. It's the same name. In Greek, sore, P-S-O-R, means itch. So this is an old disease. It's been talked about before. For me, I felt like, you know, the expression, life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. I felt that it was important for me to not hide, but to use the illness to not only work through some of the issues that I've had with it, but also to educate other people.
Right. Now, the film, I'm Just Like You, Children with Psoriasis, is very specific. It's not about adults. And you said that the onset is typical of people in their 20s. Why focus on children? Is it more prevalent? Or?
Well, I think children have been overlooked in our community. So I made 2 films about psoriasis. The first one is called My Skin's on Fire. That was the first film ever created about the illness, which we did about 7 years ago. And that is kind of a survey piece and looks at the illness from the emotional and psychosocial points of view, as well as the physical. But children often were not able to get the medications that adults get for obvious reasons. They're still growing, they're still developing. Medications can have impact on the immune system. So I felt that children were overlooked, and I felt like it was, and people in the community wanted me to begin to focus on them in some way. So what started off as a small project actually turned into a 4-year project.
Right.
We really, we were blessed to have families who were open and invited us into their lives. Because actually, you know, you have to go to visit someone, you have to move into their house, you have to bring your equipment, you have to follow them for 2 or 3 days, come back. So it was really a collaborative experience with the families.
Well, and let's be frank. I mean, children can be brutal to each other.
Absolutely.
I imagine that the level sometimes of teasing or societal non-acceptance within young people with psoriasis must be very difficult to handle.
Absolutely. Well, adults have more sophisticated ways of handling stress and handling discomfort. Kids are more vulnerable. And kids don't hold back. Kids, as you say, can be very cruel. And teasing and bullying is very common. So kids would try to figure out ways to hide. But with a kid, you know, what can you do as a kid? You go to school, you're on the playground, you have sports.
Yeah.
We don't have to participate in sports if we don't want to as adults.
Right.
We can go to work and go home, stay in our apartments, and choose how we want to interact and who we want to interact with. Kids, as I say, are more vulnerable. So we had some interesting experiences talking to kids and families really had to use this as an opportunity to pull together and to educate the community and to educate the people around those families.
Right. In our last couple of minutes, talk to me about what you've learned about yourself from this work, and then I want you specifically to talk about the work of the Sparklestone Foundation.
Well, I've learned that, you know, I'm like anybody else. You know, I have an exterior that sends out a certain message, but that has nothing to do with who I am inside. I think the main thing I've learned is that I cannot let this illness define who I am. It's part of who I am, but it isn't all of who I am. You know, and my goal is to educate people, to demythify and demystify the illness, so that when people see people with psoriasis, they now know what it is. And that's what the Sparklestone does. The Sparklestone Foundation, its mission statement is to focus on the impact of chronic illness on the individual and the family, and at the same time, to give people permission to be themselves.
So the Sparklestone Foundation is not limited to just people dealing with psoriasis. It's other issues.
Well, hopefully we'll continue to do this work and expand. We formed the foundation a few years ago, so the first 2 films, My Skin's on Fire and I'm Just Like You, have been our main focus right now, the last few years. But hopefully we're going to be branching. I have some other ideas about other projects dealing with chronic illness, the individual and the family, and hopefully we'll move into those directions as well.
Right. In our last few moments, tell me what has been the most uplifting part of making this film.
Knowing that people who see the film can see themselves in the film and begin to share who they are and what they've been through with their families, with their friends, with their co-workers, and in that sense, take the stigma out of the illness.
Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Fred Finkelstein about his experience and his films about psoriasis and the work of the Sparklestone Foundation. I'm David Perry. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.